So I'm going to propose a question for you guys. Could the fires in Southern California affect Las Vegas? And if they could, what would that look like? Well, in this video, we're going to answer that very question. So buckle your seatbelts because here we go. So I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with at least some of the information that has occurred over the last week now regarding the Pacific Palisades fires, the fires in Eaton, Hearst, and the other towns. So currently authorities are reporting that there were at least 16 deaths, unfortunately. The Palisades fire is currently about 11% contained and has burned over 23,000 acres and still threatens residential areas. Eaton fire is about 27% contained. It has slowed its spread, but it has burned about 14,000 acres. The other fires that exist are in Kenneth, which had burned about 1,000 acres, but that is 100% contained. The Hearst fire is probably now fully contained, but that ended up burning more than 800 acres. And Lydia, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is 100% contained, and that fire burned over 400 acres. Now, a lot of you have kept up with, what's going on there in the LA County, knowing that all of this ended up starting on the 8th of January. And a lot of you have probably seen, tons of photos, a lot of videos of what has occurred there.
Even in a state used to wildfires, the level of devastation in Los Angeles is jarring. Entire neighborhoods, more than 10,000 homes and other structures, have been destroyed over a 25-mile expanse by several deadly wildfires in just 3 days. Around a third of the Kenneth and Hearst fires have been contained so far. They have already caused unprecedented damage to the communities in Malibu. The Palisades fire nearby stands at around 8% contained, while the Eaton fire north of LA, which has consumed neighborhoods in Pasadena and Altadena, has not been contained at all.
Now, for those of us who are familiar with California, especially Southern California, we know that this state is extremely prone to these kinds of wildfires. But the governor, Gavin Newsom, and the mayor of LA, Karen Bass, have been slammed for really just complete incompetence, for not preparing the region and for the governor, the rest of California, for these kinds of wildfires.
Reporters brought you this, that the reservoir was offline and empty. What was your response?
That it's so crazy that we have leaders that are reactive rather than proactive. I mean, it really emphasizes what I tweeted yesterday about issues of competence.
Madness. And I've seen that clip of that mother, and she says to the governor, will it be different next time? And he says, it has to be. Next time. This just happened 4 months ago. All of northern Malibu just burned down 4 months ago. It happened in 2018 when I lost my house. And not only was it not different, PG&E, who was responsible for the fire that burned down my house with equipment that was over 100 years old, was not only not held accountable, he completely let them off the hook, and they weren't forced to update the infrastructure. The fire hydrants are broken, the reservoirs ran dry. Well, guess what? In 2014, Californians voted on Proposition 1 to put billions toward building new reservoirs. Not one is complete 10 years later. Let's talk about forestry. I grew up in California. There were regular controlled burns. You would get notices from the city that you had to do brush cleanup and your home was going to be inspected. This all stopped before Newsom, to be fair. But if we're I'm going to go full-blown devil's advocate on you. California is prone to fire. Bad Santa Ana winds. We know this. Let's go with global warming. Perfect. Since you know the place is a tinderbox, why are you not doing the work?
Prepare.
Prepare. My God.
It's arid. It's dry.
Do
it
control
is prone
burns.
to winds. Exactly.
They're not only being slammed by the local residents, which include a lot of celebrities. lot of celebrities, but they're also being slammed by the up-and-coming administration. Donald Trump and the like.
Opportunity to have millions of gallons a week, a day, millions and millions of gallons come down from the north. And I was able to get them federal approval from that, from the Department of Commerce of all departments. I didn't realize it would go through Commerce. I would have thought environmental, but it goes through Commerce. I got all of the approvals, and he said, I don't want to sign it. I don't want the water. We don't need the water. I said, you need the water. Your reservoirs are empty, the whole place. You need the water. That was 5 years ago. And I had it all done. The work was all done. We sent it to him. He refused to sign it. And if you noticed yesterday, the hydrants were empty. They didn't have any water, many of them. They said 20%, but now I just heard 50%, and now none of them have water, and that fire is still raging. When he turned that down, I was going to give him unlimited water. It would come down. It really comes down from the north, way up north, including parts of Canada. It's so much water that they wouldn't know what to do with. Just the opposite would have happened. But they've had horrible politicians. I think that Gavin is largely incompetent, and I think the mayor is largely incompetent, and probably both of them are just stone cold incompetent. What they've done is terrible.
Now, many people are stating that a lot of this, it could have been prevented if the state had properly managed the fuel or the natural, debris that builds up around these residential neighborhoods. And a lot of people out there are talking about the millions and millions of dollars that were cut from the fire department's budget that could have helped fight these fires.
Clear. Yes, we took a $17 million budget cut. And as we know, any budget cut would negatively impact our ability to carry out our mission. I want to also clarify that I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. It's my job as the fire chief of the Los Angeles City Fire Department to make sure that our firefighters have exactly what they need to do their jobs. And that's why I'm talking to you today. The Palisades fire, everybody's seen it. It is absolutely one of the most horrific natural disasters in the history of Los Angeles. And even with an additional 100 engines, I tell you, we were not going to catch that fire. But with that being said, let me be clear. The $17 million budget cut and the elimination of our civilian positions like our mechanics did and has and will continue to severely impact our ability to repair our apparatus. So with that, we have over 100 fire apparatus out of service, and having these apparatus in the proper amount of mechanics would have helped. And so it did absolutely negatively impact. I want to also be clear that I have, over the last 3 years, been clear that the fire department needs help. We can no longer sustain where we are. We do not have enough firefighters.
Now, these budgets, the effects on the department really ended up affecting their ability to be able to provide necessary supplies, such as personnel, equipment, that could have definitely ended up helping or mitigating the spread of this fire. In addition, it's been reported that there is a serious lack of water, or at least that there was a serious lack of water to fight these fires. Firefighters would end up coming up to a hydrant, and either they had too low of pressure or the fire hydrant literally had no water at all. Now, the level of confusion and anger is definitely real, and it is being pointed out or expressed by so many.
You know what? They got to go. I don't give a damn if they do. After what I've seen last week, they got to go. I'm done. I'm done, Kevin. I'm done.
Steve, sometimes there are natural disasters you can't do a damn thing about. When a hurricane hits your house down in Florida, what can you do? Are you yelling at the politicians to stand out there and stop the winds?
Kev, I'm not going off about the fires. The fires is not their fault. But when firefighters are standing there and saying there's not enough water in the fire.
That's true.
When Donald Trump asked for water to be pumped from Canada into the LA system, and Gavin Newsom opposed that. When you're hearing about environmentalists compelling him to protect smelt and little fish and salmon at the expense of LA citizens, of California citizens, Kevin, I don't need much else than that. I just don't. Maybe you're nicer than me. Maybe I'm too cruel. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
So as of right now, the total These fires have scorched over 38,000 acres, have damaged over 10,000 structures, and more than 150 people are under evacuation orders, according to the California Office of Emergency Services. So with all of this that has occurred due to these fires, the tragedies of the loss of life, the properties that have been destroyed, not to mention the loss of sentimental items, pictures and keepsakes, things that just cannot end up being replaced. So what are those that live in these areas in the LA County going to do from here? This, I believe, is the biggest question moving forward with all, when all the fires are out, controlled, and we're past this. A lot of folks have already revisited, or visited the site in which their property either once did stand, or at least they're there to assess what's going on.
Some return to their homes to find nothing but smoking rubble.
As you can see, there's nothing left, and I've been here for about an hour and a half, and I don't want to leave. It's home. So I really can't put into words.
Everything that we know and love is gone. Not just this house, my whole city gone, man. The whole thing, like everything, my whole neighborhood, everything that I grew up to love and know is burnt up.
We had everything, like the sentimental things. Like my mom passed away. I had only a few things of hers left. My wedding dress, our wedding album. We left everything. Our albums, we have just whatever we're wearing. We're wearing the same thing for the last 2 days.
Now, many of these folks will assess the damage to the property, even if it didn't obviously burn down. And many will end up contacting their insurance company if they had a policy that was in place that covered this type of damage. But it has been reported that many large insurance companies have basically dropped the fire coverage due to the rising risks of a large fire like the one that we're seeing. Now, I am sure that there are many folks out there thinking to themselves, how in the world can an insurance company remove fire insurance in an area that has such high risk? Well, that's because these insurance companies continuously assess the potential for these kinds of disasters, and they make policy changes in accordance with what they believe is the ability for coverage to really be paid. And in my opinion, I think that they ended up assessing the risks, of fires breaking out and realized that the local and state governments did not do enough to mitigate the risk in order to provide a policy affordable enough for the customers in that area to be able to have it. Now, from my understanding, there's also the fact that local and state governments had prevented these insurance companies from raising their policy rates to cover the homes in case there was a fire. So think about that. If you as an insurance company are like, hey, I'm willing to provide you with a policy, but it's going to end up coming out to be this because we assess the area, we realize that the level of risk has gone way up. Therefore, in order for us to continue a policy, we're going to have to raise the rate. But the local and state government says, no, insurance company, you can't do this to these people. The insurance company's like, well, I see the writing on the wall. This is literally going to explode into a massive fire potentially, and you won't allow me to go ahead and protect myself by raising interest or raising the policy rates, so I'm out of here. So, the blame kind of as to why some of these people don't have insurance, is a multi-factor, I would say. And because of all of this, these insurance companies just said bye. Now, for those property owners that did have some form of coverage, it'll be very interesting to see what they decide to do based on the terms of their policy. Meaning, will they end up staying and rebuilding their property, or will they perhaps take the funds that they've received from their insurance company and then go move somewhere else? Now, one of the biggest things that I think is going to linger due to all of this is the psychological effect from these fires. So I am sure many of the residents in LA County may be thinking to themselves, is it worth living here anymore? Can I trust my state and my local government officials to do what is necessary in order to prevent something like this from happening in the future? So how does this affect Las Vegas? Well, currently, right now, many of the large casinos on the Strip are offering rooms to folks who've been affected by these fires.
Evacuees. There are some local resorts offering discounts to those fleeing from the fires. Resorts World announced it's offering 35% off rooms for those who contact the hotel directly. Fontainebleau is also telling Fox 5 it's offering a special rate for those who get displaced. South Point is also offering a discount to evacuees.
But what should Las Vegas potentially expect in the coming months to year from what's happening with these fires? Well, Las Vegas population growth is largely due to folks that move from California to the Las Vegas Valley. Now, I would expect that the number of Californians that decide to move to Las Vegas may increase significantly due to what has happened. Some may move just out of necessity, and others who are really just tired of dealing with the potential for these kinds of disasters, the fires and the earthquakes. And many more may move because they are just completely exhausted of the political environment that's over there. And now that, California politics have affected them in so many aspects of their lives. We've already heard so many people point the finger as to who they feel is responsible for the scale of this disaster. So how many more Californians could Las Vegas expect to move here is really anyone's guess. But any increase to the Las Vegas Valley, whether to purchase a property or to rent, will most likely exacerbate the issue of unaffordability by the increased demand for housing. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the demand for housing is going to be affected by the number of Californians that move into the Las Vegas Valley over the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, the rest of the 2025. Now, I'm also really interested to hear what you have to say. What do you think is going to end up occurring over this next year due to these fires? So please end up leaving a comment. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It helps out the channel so much. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I look forward to meeting up with you guys in the next video.